Hello and welcome to Gameplay Cast's review of the first-person survival horror game Scorn. If puzzles, sci-fi horror, and a fair amount of gore are your thing, then this might just scratch that itch. Scorn is a first-person survival horror game developed by Ebb Software. Its art style is clearly inspired by the classic sci-fi movie Alien. It is a brilliant homage which creates a horribly uncomfortable setting. Perfect for the game and just what the developers were aiming for. The game includes some combat in the form of FPS shooting, but I would say the primary focus is exploration. Big question time then. Is this Xbox and PC exclusive worth your hard-earned time and money? This one is a bit more difficult to answer, as I can see that this game will not be for everyone. I think if you're a fan of puzzle games, sci-fi horror, and don't mind being grossed out a bit, think dismemberment and liquefying fetus-like things, then it's a decent title, and my brain is still processing the narrative, so it's at least thought-provoking. Let's get into the review and try to decide if Scorn is the game for you. So the story is very much open to interpretation, in that there isn't any explanation or scene building at all. The player is dropped into a protagonist who seems to be trying to reach a tower in a desolate wasteland. He falls down a crevasse, comes to in front of a door, and that's basically the start of the game. From here you must solve some puzzles in order to continue forward. That is until you quite literally meet a sticky end at the end of the second act. The game then jumps to its second protagonist, who this time falls out of an egg and seems to be aiming for the same goal as the previous guy. The crux is that when our guy enters the facility, he encounters a kind of mutated lizard creature that I'm going to nickname a backhugger for reasons that will become obvious. As soon as you see this creature, you know it's not going to be a good thing. Anyway, eventually the creature attacks you, and you guessed it, backhugs you, becoming a kind of parasitic symbiote with its hands in your guts. Don't worry if you forget, you're regularly reminded with painful scenes where it digs its hands in a bit deeper and to some lovely squelching sound effects. Nice. This is where it gets interesting though, as once this happens, you mysteriously get the pneumatic drill weapon the first protagonist had, thus implying that this weird creature is the first guy. Weird. Don't worry if you missed this, the first time round it went completely over my head. From here the story progresses until you reach the finale in the tower, and the gore and interpretation build to new peaks. I'm purposely trying to be vague here as I don't want to flavour or spoil your experience of the game. Does this all make sense? I honestly don't know. I feel the game's messaging is quite deep, particularly in its final act. Very metaphoric, lots of fertility and pregnancy or birth references, hints towards the protagonist's rebirth, if you can just reach that portal at the top of the tower. Is it interesting? Absolutely. I completed the game 24 hours ago, and my brain is still spinning, trying to comprehend what on earth happened. Thankfully, the setting requires much less interpretation. It's hideously unnerving. The developers claim they wanted the setting to be an unnerving character in itself. In this, I think they 100% succeeded. My guard was up the whole time, and I don't think there was a single jump out surprise. I was constantly expecting one and could never quite relax. Every time I thought I had a handle on the horror, the next act would level things up, keeping me sufficiently weirded out. I'm a big fan of the Alien movies, the good ones I mean, so 1 and 2, and I think this style of setting shines, as while it's horrible, you just can't help wanting to know what is behind the next door, and my sense of grim fascination demanded I complete the game. The exploration of the setting is really where this game shines. Everything looks alien and weird, like a mix between built and grown. Tapping into that style from the Alien movies was a really good idea because there is something fascinating, sinister, organic, almost sexual in nature which lends itself to the story perfectly. This effect is what drives the player's dread fascination to keep going, like I know putting my arm in this hole is a bad idea, but I gots to know. So you do it anyway. The attention to detail is really cool and makes the setting feel alive and believable. This is key to the player feeling immersed, which in turn adds to the sense of unease I mentioned earlier. Puzzles are scattered throughout, usually blocking the route to the next chapter or act. In general, they're pretty standard, but add some much needed variety. Nothing close to the scale that Tunic went to in my previous review, but enjoyable and on theme nonetheless. To add further variety, the game has a combat element in the form of some rough FPS mechanics. Now I say rough deliberately because I have a few issues with the combat that I'll discuss in the appropriate section, but suffice to say, rough is an apt descriptor. I totally agree that the game needed some extra elements, and that the survival horror and first-person perspectives aligned with first-person shooter combat perfectly. I just think the execution wasn't great, and to really elevate the game, the developer needed to give this aspect a bit more love and attention. Ammunition is scarce, and the enemies are tough, so you must choose your battles wisely. Combined, the core mechanics do at least balance, and the way they come together adds some urgency to this survival horror. As if a backhugger with its hands in your guts forcing you to grow strange tendrils wasn't urgency enough.
It is your destiny.
For a small-time indie dev, I think the graphics are really quite impressive. Once you've turned the motion blur off, that is. Why games insist on having this setting, I don't know. Does anyone actually like it? Personally, it gives me travel sickness. I digress. I've said previously I really like the visual style of the game. I think it suits the genre and narrative well, and though I don't think that a game's graphics are the be-all and end-all, for a game based around exploration, I think it really had to look the part in order to inspire the player's curiosity and intrigue. I definitely remember a few graphic pops when the game was loading up, but other than that, I can't recall any other noticeable performance or frame rate issues in my completion on an Xbox Series X. Issues. Unfortunately, I have a couple of biggies here that have put some dents in the score. Firstly, I get what the developer was going for here, and I'm not at all averse to being thrown into the deep end of a game and made to swim. But outside of the white highlights to indicate a potential interaction, or the control layout on the start button, there's literally nothing in terms of guidance in the game whatsoever. No minimap, no hints if you get stuck, nada. So much so that even the option selection text at the bottom of the screen for the main menu is almost missable. I just don't get it. I think this is kind of building into the trend of not leading the player, which in the main part is good, but personally I think this takes it just a little too far. As a player playing on a 2D screen, I don't have the kind of spatial awareness that a person gets from actually being in a 3D space. Therefore I rely on in-game mechanics to try and compensate or at least simulate this for me. I mean, the guns don't even auto-load, so I was running around like an idiot pulling the trigger wondering why I couldn't find my gun, yet I had a weird heart thingy full of ammo. Could you not have just put the reload on the trigger as well when you got to 0? My other big bugbear is the combat. It's very slow and laborious and just not overly satisfying. Unless I completely missed it, there's no melee attack. I guess that's supposed to be the hammer maybe? But you can't really switch fast enough to 1-2 an enemy, so I feel the game is sorely lacking a melee attack button. The protagonist just doesn't seem to have any sense of urgency. The aiming is really sluggish, which, given how scarce ammunition can be, only really adds to the frustration when you inevitably miss the target at point blank. And reloading? Don't worry about it. This guy has all the time in the world. Add in the fact that enemies hit hard, and fighting anything in the game becomes extremely dangerous. I basically ended up popping targets at range or just running away. I presume that the developers didn't want to make you too capable of simply destroying everything in the game, but I feel that this could have been accomplished by limiting ammo alone, and that the player's speed and ability could have been tuned up quite a bit. There are also only about 4 or 5 enemy types in the game, which I think could have been expanded too, though this is only a minor observation. The last thing I wanted to touch on was the very linear nature of the story in tandem with the short 5-hour-ish completion time. I think the length of the game was about right, but the developer could have offered multiple endings, routes, and or solutions. Come to think of it, I think there's only one puzzle in the game with an alternative method. This is a really big missed opportunity, which would have also added some much needed replayability, as there really isn't any reason to go back to the game once you've completed it. In summary, the game looks great, and I love the need to explore and intrigue that the setting creates. The puzzles, while basic in nature, add some variety, as does the combat, both building in complexity as the game progresses. The themes in the game and horror visuals are visceral. I mean, there's a part where the protagonist is disemboweled, wanders around for a bit before some mad robot cuts the top of his skull off. I mean, what more can I say? Lovely. I'll take this as a cue to reiterate, due to this kind of showstopper, the game might not be for everyone. Though overall, I did enjoy the gameplay and still can't decide if I liked the ending or not. But considering this is a game that purposely provides no context, should I be surprised I'm still mulling over the interpretive ending? Who knows? In terms of a mark out of 10, I award this game the above average score of a 6 out of 10. The disappointing combat and unrefined gameplay elements combine to really knock down the score. Moreover, while the length of the game is about right for what it is, if you factor in how linear the story and puzzle elements are, can't help feeling a bit disappointed. The game's setting and visuals really do all of the heavy lifting here, offering an intriguing and somewhat gruesome exploration experience that is engaging, saving the game from being something purely average. I think if Ebb Software had been a touch more ambitious and taken a little bit longer, this game could have easily scored a lot higher. If you want to check out Scorn following this review, it's available to play on Xbox Game Pass and to buy on the Windows Store and Steam. This concludes the Gameplay Cast's review of the first-person survival horror game, Scorn, developed by Ebb Software. I've been Tim from Gameplay Casts, you've been awesome, and all that's left for me to say is peace out and thanks for watching.